Hi, this is Daniel, and this is my article of the week via podcast on things I have learned about art in my last year. So, after a lot of consideration, I've decided to not do Thing of the Day anymore. I will still post a lot, however, I just don't feel I've been giving enough to it, and so I'm going to do at least one article a week plus my posting on Art Thursdays. This will make it easier. I'll be doing at least one mental health, one art, and one sports one per every 2 months. So there will always be something that people enjoy, I'm hoping. And if there's something you want me to talk about, just give me a shout out, because I'm very good at talking, I guess, is one way to put it. So, I wanted to do this one for a while now. I've really been getting into art, and I feel like a lot of people make some assumptions about art, and I wanted to kind of make them prove them different and make them prove them wrong. I don't know, whatever the words would be. I want to make them make my argument for why art is just a really cool thing. So before we start, you need to know what I like. I enjoy art a lot, and the point of this video is to show three things real. The middle ground would be number one. The second thing would be you have to explore, and the third one would be the enjoyment part of it. So here it goes. The list of things that I've learned about art and that I can pass on to anyone who's either doing art or really anything. It's just, you have to apply it to that. So the first thing is that there's a middle for everything. A lot of times we're like, well, should I do it this way or that way? The answer is almost always the same. It's in the middle. The internet, for example. Should I look up pictures to draw, or should I just draw them off the top of my head? You should do both. That's the most obvious answer I have for you. I don't mean to be rude or anything, but that is the answer I have for you. And it's true with tutorials. Like, it's great to use tutorials, but it's also great to use your own head. I think also you'll find what works for you. So while I'm saying some of this stuff, it might not apply to you. Another point would be to try every supply you have and take advantage of every supply you have. Supplies are expensive. That's just the truth. I did an article on that a year ago. I'll put the link below. And the truth is, you have to find things. So, for example, if you have a piece of wood, that's a piece of wood to paint on. I know someone who used a skull and painted on a skull. And so, you just really have to be creative in your mindset, because art supplies are expensive. I think of going to the art store, and just off the top of my head, there were pastel paper, charcoal paper, Bristol board. There was sketchbook paper, there was drawing paper, there was mixed media paper, there was watercolor paper, there was comic paper, which is really just drawing paper but used for comics. And that's not even including the sizes or the colors or the shapes or any of the creativity that goes with it. So there are a lot of different options, and you should try as many of them as you can. It's what makes it enjoyable. I mean, the point of this for me personally is not to have perfect pieces. Okay, point number 3. Because you do something doesn't mean it's not yours, even if someone else does something the same. So, a face is a great example of this. If I draw an eye and it looks like someone else's eye, that doesn't mean that it's not my style. It just means someone else has the same style. Because otherwise, it's kind of hard to draw and paint if you're always concerned about whether it's your style or not. It's not. Painting and stuff's been around for hundreds and thousands of years. Since the cavemen painted. So, you're not going to have that much original stuff. But you can make it your own. And that brings me to point number 4. Put spins on classic artwork. One of my favorite phrases is, there's a reason it's called a classic. It applies to food and sports and life. Like football. There is a reason that people throw the football. And that's because it works. They score points. There is a reason that Vincent van Gogh is famous. And that's because people enjoy his art. So, for example, I do Denny Dent work, which Denny Dent was a speed artist. And I put my own twist on it to make it my own. Now, I'm not saying it's bad to copy. But even if you take one star off Starry Night, the painting by Vincent van Gogh, it becomes yours. I'm not saying that it's your original work. But it becomes your piece based on what Van Gogh said. Okay, my next piece of advice is to be careful with political pieces, but don't be afraid. So I just finished my first piece that's political or about race or anything that's controversial. And I'm not saying that it's not important to draw these things. All I'm saying is you need to be sensitive in what you do and how you display it. And you also have to understand, and could just be another point, that there are going to be a lot of people that might be offended by it. It's how the world works. If you haven't noticed, we like to blame people. We like to get upset at people. It's the world. And so I can say whatever I want, that this piece is supposed to be peaceful and have all the meaning in the world. And someone could say, well, it has a word in it, or it has this, or this isn't drawn correct. It doesn't matter because it's my piece. You will always be your worst critic. I've learned that. I'm in a class and we're doing critiques and stuff, and everyone does these amazing pieces and they don't like them, but they were more than willing to compliment everyone else's piece. Oh, this is amazing. I love the look on this. But their own piece, which I thought was amazing, they'd be like, oh, I messed up that. And it's just like, we will all be our own worst critic. That could be another point, actually, if you want to add a point if you're writing these down. The next point I have is to do something you're passionate about. Doing art is not easy if you just have nothing else. If you're just doing like skies or whatever, and I do oceans, for example, a lot, but it's much more enjoyable, but you don't get the same fulfillment as you do out of a really big piece. And so the thing is, find something, whether it's history or scenery or mental health or race, and do something with it. Make it so that it combines your art, because otherwise you don't really have a meaning. I heard this about music, and that it has to bring some sort of emotion to you. I feel art's the same way. You know, when I look at an art piece, one of my goals when I do my art is to make people smile. But really my other goal is to just bring some sort of emotion. You know, because that's what makes people feel something and say, hey, I can relate to that. If you don't have any emotion with it, it's just like, well, you know, I guess it's a nice piece. Like, you know, the Mona Lisa is a great example of this. One person might say, well, she's not smiling. And so it's like, that's weird. But at the same time, we all feel that because all of us have had days where we don't want to smile when you're expected to smile, which the Mona Lisa was. A lot of people, when I was young, I definitely did. I thought Mona Lisa was smiling. I had no clue till I looked further. Okay, the next thing, I kind of mentioned it before, but I'm going to go deeper into it, and that's try as many mediums as you can. Clay, drawing, painting, you know, garbage drawing, or sculpture, excuse me. You know, you can try anything. And again, relating it back to what you like. So I like sports memorabilia, for example. So when I heard about artist trading cards, that was natural for me to try. But that doesn't mean someone else won't like it. And to me, it's really important to try lots of different sizes, but it's also really important to try lots of different speeds. If you're a slow artist, I commend you because I stink at it. I like to go fast. But at the same time, you might want to try to go fast once in a while because it forces you to draw the basic shapes. And more importantly, something a lot of artists do, it forces you not to overthink the piece. Because people do that all the time. They have this great idea, this great vision. They overthink the piece. Okay, my next point would be, don't be afraid to put some spins on things. You know, just because you get an assignment or something doesn't mean that you have to do it that way. The worst that's going to happen is you ask someone and they say no. And honestly, if they do, well, I'm not going to say they're a jerk unless you're asking them to, like, draw a cow when you're supposed to be painting a war scene. But, like, don't let them get to you. Draw it later. Do it for fun. You know, art is supposed to be enjoying, and it really can be. And one of the things I'm always thinking about is, because art therapy is a really big thing, but is art therapy the same as someone going to an art class and taking art? And the answer is absolutely not. Art is hard. Like my professor, when I first met them, they said this is not art therapy. And it really isn't. It's incredibly difficult. It's stressful. You don't get as much time as you like. Well, at least most people don't. I'm a quick artist. But, you know, so it's different than just sitting down and doing it and relaxing. And I think the mental health part, I'll go on that for a minute now, is that this can be a really good practice of mindfulness if you can get into the moment and into the art. Because in art, you have to focus on every single pencil stroke. Every single piece of paint you put on there has to have meaning, for me at least. And I'm someone that's big on passion. So you have to have passion in your work. And so if you're really upset at someone and you need to be mindful, it's a great way to work on it. Okay, my last point, and maybe my most important, to me the middle one's also just as important, but is to enjoy what you're doing. And I want to make something clear. I'm not saying that you should just like put a dot on the paper, sorry Japanese flag, I know that's basically what you are, and say, hey, this is a great piece of art. Because it might not be. But I think of Andy Warhol. He took balloons and he put them in a room, and they're called the Balloon Room. And you can go see it in Pittsburgh at the Andy Warhol Museum. It's called the Balloon Room. It's a really cool piece. And when I saw that piece, I was fascinated by it. Like, he took balloons, is what I wanted to say. And people like this stuff. But at the same time, it was so enjoyable to just be in the art. And I love doing art that's simple and not overthinking. And doing something that makes someone say WTF. Or making someone really react. And I don't want to go into my history too much, but I've had a lot of issues and personal problems in my life. And art is something that I truly enjoy. And so I wasn't really able to do art for a while. So when you do something you really enjoy, don't be afraid of it. Attack it. The worst that happens is you find out you don't like it. That's not a bad thing at all. Having fun is important. I know people say it's about grades, it's about this, it's about that. But you only live once. You know, I heard a lot of people say YOLO. And I feel like that can be such a deeper meaning. Don't do art if you don't enjoy it. And I'm not saying you might have to do it sometimes where you don't enjoy it. That's true. But I look forward to art class. I like art. It's one of the most enjoyable things for me. So it's something I really like to do. And for me, that's what makes it fulfilling. To make someone smile, to make someone laugh. And to add to that, if you're doing it for mindfulness or whatever, don't be a perfectionist. It's going to not work. Because you'll be like, oh, this is the worst. It's not perfect. But sometimes that's what's great. Because humans aren't perfect. I think about Denny Dent, one of my favorite artists. His pieces, they weren't perfect. But they were amazing and they related to people. He drew painted Jimi Hendrix and John Lennon. And the thing is, sometimes there are amazing pieces that you don't get that amazing feeling out of because they don't have the meaning and you don't feel like the artist put themselves into it. I always put everything I have into a piece, and I feel like enjoying art is a big part of doing it, just like anything else in life. And there are times where I feel frustrated with art, but that doesn't mean I don't enjoy it. I enjoy the challenge. And also, please realize this for people who are looking for ideas. I can always give ideas if people are interested, but ideas are not a bank vault. You know, you don't own any idea. I remember watching a South Park episode called Simpsons Did It. And, you know, I think it was Butters was his name, would always be doing something. And I would always be like, Simpsons did it! Simpsons did it! Who cares if someone else did it? You know how many people have painted a sky? But no one's painted your sky. No one's painted your ocean, or your sunset, or your human face. No one's ever drawn your monument, or your town in your head. Those are things that only you can do. And I know that sounds really, really corny, but it's not supposed to be. And the reason I say that is because if people didn't do their versions of things, we wouldn't have great art. And great art is just amazing. You have to have it. It's just like so cool. And also realize that finding your own style is hard. But eventually, what you do is your own style. It's not something that just comes to you like, oh my goodness, I found the light. I found my own style. No, it just doesn't work that way. Alright, this is my video, podcast of course, and my article of the week. I hope you enjoyed this and got something out of it. Is there something you want me to talk about? Because trust me, I can talk. And if you have an idea, or you want to check out one of my other podcasts, like the one on how I can't play guitar, with the awesome Panda, by the way, or the one about Thanksgiving, or the college football playoffs, sorry, that's a little rushed, that one, check it out. I'll be posting more soon, and have a great night, enjoy your week.